can smell that broccoli now, right?
I do.
Yeah.
You smell broccoli?
That's weird.
Nothing I ate. It's something they cook someplace.
Yeah.
It's been following me around.
Uh-oh. Oh, no. When we were doing the press conference for the movie, that was yesterday, I guess, you were saying that you were talking about the way that the movie was shot, and you said, I know it sounds kind of irresponsible, but it really isn't. Can you, just tell that story?
No, just that when we were shooting the movie, there was very strong script.
Yeah.
So it's not like we were tweaking that. I mean, there was a text with very little indication except for who was talking to who.
Yeah.
But besides that, we would decide what that was.
Yeah.
But usually Julian would shoot very fast in a very fluid way, and we'd finish early in the day, and then we'd have the rest of the day to do whatever we wanted, which was mostly painting or walking around in the landscape and just inventing things. And that was a very fun way to work because you kind of got your work done and then you got to play around. I only said irresponsible. I probably shouldn't have said irresponsible, but I mean, it wasn't like a regular...
It seemed irresponsible.
Yeah, it seemed irresponsible.
Right. Yeah. But, and then...
just so we know,
how many people have seen
thank you.
At Eternity's Gate?
Okay.
That's a pretty fair number.
Okay.
If you haven't seen
I not to find out what you thought of it, but just so we know how much to speak to that.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm asking that question because you've made all different kinds of films with all different kinds of directors under all different kinds of circumstances, and it's a very unorthodox way of shooting.
You know, every film is so different, and I can't stress that enough, particularly if you aren't like an industry guy that goes from studio film to studio film, and I am not.
Yeah.
But also, people's notion, even some people that work in movies, they have a very kind of old-fashioned notion of how movies are made.
Yes.
And what the responsibility of different people is. And they have kind of the old-fashioned theater model or something of there's the dramaturgy, there's a script, and there's a director who comes in and watches, and then there's actors who read the script and have an idea about the character, and then they all get in a room, and the actors do their thing, and the director watches them and kind of cleans up things. And there's so many overlapping.
Yeah.
It's particularly with Julian, because I know him and because he's an artist. We know each other pretty well, and we didn't do this to interpret something.
Yeah.
We went to have an experience and record that experience. And then out of the material that we would create, we would frame it, mostly he, because he's more responsible for the post, frame it and cut it and put it together in a way that would express what he wanted, him being the principal person that
guiding
creates
force.
The vision.
Yeah.
But for me, I mean, when I'm working with someone like Julian, I don't feel like an actor as much as a doer and a filmmaker.
Yeah. And in certain cases, you were actually handling the camera.
Yeah. Which I've done before, but in this I did it more.
And painting.
And painting. Painting was essential. Practically speaking, because the way it was shot, it wasn't one of these things where, you'd see the painting and then you'd have a stunt painter and then you'd cut to me. We weren't shooting that way. We didn't shoot coverage. We shot fluidly and there was no coverage. And we shot fast. So for the people that saw the movie and remember it well, when those boots, I painted those boots.
Yeah.
Julian practiced me at it. He coached me on it. I practiced because I knew that scene was going to come. And almost all the painting I did was practicing to do the things that I would do in the movie.
Yeah.
And sometimes the canvas would be prepared to some degree, and then I'd work areas or I'd do part of the painting.
Right.
But like the shoes, really from scratch. And that was very important because the truth is, for a while, they look very bad. Yeah, they look like a mess. The colors look all wrong. You wonder what the hell it is. And then at the very end, boom, it goes like that.
Yeah.
With a couple of marks.
Yeah.
It turns into something else. And it doesn't look like the boots.
Yeah.
It's not a
Right.
representation. It's not a good likeness, but it captures something. And if the audience sees that, like I see it when I watch it as an audience member, then I think that's a very beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Van Gogh talked about, he saw the power of art. You know, it's sometimes I want to say something greater than life. That's not quite the right word, but you know, he said there's more soul in Milet's sower than there is a guy in the field. Mm-hmm. And I get the point. I mean, he also said, you know, I don't invent the painting. I don't invent the picture. It's there in nature. I just have to free it. Those are beautiful, evocative things for me. They mean something to me. And then when I'm practiced at painting, you know, it becomes, I have a real relationship to those things. So as an actor, when I'm saying those things, I'm not thinking about Vincent van Gogh. I'm thinking about me.
Yeah.
And how I feel about making things, how I feel about my life.
Yeah. There's also another moment when you're talking to, when Van Gogh was talking to Dr. Gachet, played by Mathieu Amalric, and you say, well, he says, why do you paint? And you say, well, I paint so that I can stop thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all relate to that.
Yeah.
No, we all do things that where we feel, you know,
Yeah.
we disappear into the action. We disappear into life. You know, we wake up. We're inseparable from what is. And that's important to
And
me.
that's what you're in pursuit of as an actor, right?
Really, yes.
Yeah. I can, you know, when we were backstage, you were just asked, you know, what's your favorite scene in the movie? And you said, oh, I'm not sure. But I have to say, there's a moment in the film, and I can't remember whether it's Mads Mikkelsen's the priest or whether it's the doctor who asks you, do you get angry? Who asks Van Gogh, do you get angry? It's Mads Mikkelsen. And you, the way that you react to it, you say, yes. Yeah, and that's just, it strikes me as a moment where, you know, you're not thinking about the choice of smiling.
I'm
or,
not.
you
I'm
know.
not.
Yeah.
I'm not. And if I thought about smiling, it probably would have hardened
Right.
and tipped my hand, and it wouldn't have the quality of indecision or discovery.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
You got an eye. No, I mean there was a true moment. There was a true moment.
Yeah.
And you know, you're used to yourself, so you're used to what your impulses are, and also you remember the shooting of the film. So it's funny when you watch a movie, most of it's like a home movie, and you have associations with what was going on in that day, besides also the normal thing of, oh, they used that take, or oh, that looks different than I thought, or oh, I thought that was much better, or I was worried about that, but actually it looks pretty good. You got all that going on. But above that, there are these little moments where you say, huh, I don't even recognize myself. That's something that happened, and that's one of those moments.
Yeah. I feel like there are moments like that in a film that you were in last year when you were here with Florida
I can tell
Project.
you another moment. This is really getting kind of in-house. You got to be like my mother to know this stuff.
Oh my God.
She's dead, by the way.
Okay, so
God
so
bless her.
we can talk about it. Yeah.
There was a moment in Florida Project where the woman said to me, "Don't you trust me?" And it was something she was improvised, but I actually heard it outside of being an actor or anything. Yeah. And I looked at her, and I had this moment where I wasn't in or out, or you know, it was a slap. It was a wake-up moment, and I saw that, and I didn't remember it. So I guess my point is, I really believe in the quality of being there and fluidity, and I'm interested in situations where you can arrive at that. I'm less interested in the virtuosity of the technique.
Yeah.
It's admirable. I don't have it, so you go to the point of your strengths. I mean, I have some ability, you know, but that's not my go-to thing, and that's
Yeah.
not what I'm interested so much. That's kind of I think of it as language, not something I want to work out, you know?
Yeah.
It's an ability to express yourself. But really, I usually am more interested in abandoning that technique.
Yeah. When you were we were looking at the trailer, and Robert Pattinson said, "Yeah, I love coming here to the New York Film Festival and looking for good directors." I don't know. It's like, okay, so this is where it happens. Good to know. But you said, "Yeah, I that's what I'm always looking for too," and that's what you're looking for in a filmmaker, somebody who's going to create that kind of environment where
I want to be around people that interest me.
Yeah, right.
You know, that I want to be their creature. I want to, they have an idea or they want to do something. They may not exactly know what it is. In fact, when Julian started making this movie, he wasn't sure what it was. I swear to God.
Yeah.
But he has very strong ideas, and I've been around him a lot. I've known him for many years. I knew that he knows painting. I've been around him. I know he knows how to make things, and he's a great filmmaker. So to play Van Gogh, when I hear Julian's going to do a film about Van Gogh, it's not so much Van Gogh, it's Julian making a film about Van Gogh. The people are very important to me because material isn't realized but by people in situations, and you need people to make those situations.
Yeah, it's interesting what you were saying before about the hierarchical situations that you can get into with bigger budget movie making, industrial movie making.
Not just bigger budget movie making.
Yeah.
It happens even in independent films, you know, where people have their idea of roles or have their ideas of approaches, and they're kind of fixed in those.
Yeah. Well, where there's a hierarchy where the director is kept isolated. There's the chain of command, and the AD is the one that everything's fed through, and then,
I'm going to tell. This makes me think of a story. I think it's worth wasting the time on, but
we're not wasting time.
I did a film in China.
Yeah.
And in China, actors are really treated like gods. And the thing is, you want, ideally, at least in the China cinema I know, I've worked there twice, and the actors want to spend as little time on the set as possible. It's kind of a prestige thing and a kind of pride thing about their craft and about their godliness, you know. So everything gets set up, they come in, they do their thing, and leave as quickly as possible. Me, I've always, not to sound like a brown noser, but I love to hang on the set because you got to know what's going on. You want to be part of the fabric. Also, I feel more relaxed, you know, when I feel a part of it. It's really hell to go away and then come back and have to jump into something. You don't know what happened before, as far as, you know, even as far as who's just had a fight or what they've had for lunch. All that stuff you should take on because it affects what you're doing. But in China, in order to protect this tradition of this kind of actors being held up as these special creatures, even extended to us, I used to start to walk to the set, and they'd say, no, you can't go. I'd say, what's going on? I don't want to hang out in the trailer. I want to watch. No, you're dangerous. I'd say, no, come on, really, I'm okay. I know where to stand. Don't worry. No, please, dangerous. I'd say, okay, no, I'll just go over on the side. And then they'd say, please, my job. They'll fire me.
Yeah. But it's become more possible to build this sort of like, what do I want to say, like a friendly, more organic working environment with newer, lighter cameras, like, for instance, the kind of camera that Benoit Delhomme used, which was the Red, and he was filming it with his, just with his hands, right, doing everything handheld.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a good part and a bad part.
Yeah.
I also like working in film with the clunky old, because you got a gun to your head.
Yeah.
And
Florida Project was shot on film, right?
Yeah.
35. Yeah.
And you got a little bit of a gun to your head. You can't just burn film. You
Yeah.
can't do
Yeah.
12 takes. You can't do 40 takes.
Yeah.
You don't have the money to do that.
Right.
So it forces you, I don't know, to be a little more first thought, best thought,
Yeah.
and be decisive
Mhm.
and be impulsive.
Yeah.
Because I've seen things, you know, since video has come into play,
Yeah.
and you can shoot forever. You know, you can lose the shape of things.
Yeah.
You can lose the structure. You can improvise till you're blue in the face. You start to get clever. You can be flexible as hell.
Yeah.
But, and you can get all these moments that we're looking for that are
Mhm.
relaxed and fluid, but you lose the shape of things.
Right.
So I kind of do like the discipline that the technology puts on you.
Yeah. Low budgets do that too.
Pardon?
Low budgets do that too.
They do.
No matter what you're shooting
And
on.
I
Yeah.
like that immediacy because, you know,
Mhm.
if you think about it too much, I always think about Last Temptation. If
Yeah.
that had a bigger budget, that was a low budget movie. And we didn't do lots of takes. Last Temptation of Christ by Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
He's a master and he had planned out the film for many years. He
Yeah.
was on top of it, so he was very decisive. But it also helped us, the limitations helped us.
Yeah.
So we didn't get distracted by a certain kind of pageantry or a certain kind of period thing.
Yeah.
We could be more elemental. And I think to some degree that's true of this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's conversations.
Yeah.
Conversations being in nature, painting. That's basically the structure. There's all these tight shots and there's all these landscapes and
Yeah.
some stuff in between. And I like that because it puts your feet to the fire.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that in the case of Last Temptation, with the crucifixion, I think Marty told me that he had like 50 setups, and then the budget got, you guys ran out of time, and he had to cut half of them. Yeah, and work it out with Michael Ballhaus, the cameraman. But that was a very high pressure situation, huh?
Yep. Actually, there's a similarity because Michael didn't have a lot of equipment.
Yeah.
Benoit didn't need a lot of equipment.
Mhm.
Both of them, I felt like they were dancing partners with
Mhm,
me,
mhm.
because you'd always have to, work with them.
Yeah.
There was no nailing stuff down. It was fluid.
Mm-hmm.
It was loose.
Yes. When you have the occasion to think back about, older work, how do you look at your evolution?
I don't.
Yeah. No, but I mean, have
I
you been in a situation where you've had to sit and watch?
I
Live and Die in
think
LA,
about
or-
it only when
Yeah.
I'm in situations like this,
Okay,
which I value. I'm not like,
fair enough.
I'm not shy. I mean, I'm interested in looking back, but I don't do it naturally
Yeah.
because I get my hands full with what I'm doing.
Yeah, sure, of course.
But anyway,
Yeah, I mean, when you think back on, for instance, your experience on Live and Die in L.A.,
yeah,
different kind of director.
different kind of director.
Um,
I remember my life through movies
Yeah.
and the plays that I've done,
Yeah.
which sounds really pathetic, but it's a marker. I know what I was doing. I know what I was interested in. I know who I was hanging out with. I know where I was sleeping.
Yeah.
That's how I remember my life.
Yeah.
So you say, for all I say about not looking back, I don't look back, but I have strong associations.
Right. Right.
To Live and Die in L.A., I remember Billy Friedkin was great.
Yeah.
I loved him. And he was scary, too,
Yeah.
because he mixed it up. He had been a big studio guy,
Yeah.
and he had a couple of things that sort of disappointed the studio, so he was kind of on his own, and he's a self-starter. He's a tough guy and a smart guy.
A real Chicago tough guy.
Yeah, and he thought, okay, I'm going to make this movie.
Yeah.
And he did it sort of on his own spit and
Yeah.
some money from some friends. So he was in an interesting place, and
Yeah.
he was inventing stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you feel it in the movie.
Yeah.
But my main thing was, my character was supposed to be very cool.
Yeah.
I look back on that movie, I look like a little kid. I look like a little kid in the schoolyard. But I remember going to clubs in those days, and like the big bouncer would be, "Ooh, it's Rick Masters. Oh, I'm scared of him," So that was funny, but
Yeah.
that's not what I wanted to talk about. I remember Billy would always say, "Zen, Willem, Zen." In those days, I know I have an idea of what Zen is now, very
Yeah.
much. I have a relationship to Zen now.
Yeah.
But then I didn't know what it meant.
Uh-huh.
It just meant simple.
Yeah, right.
So,
Yeah, because it means that you're, yeah, well, that's an example of, you're looking back and you realize that you've learned
oh yeah.
through experience, what,
And maybe I've lost some things too.
yeah.
Who knows,
Mhm.
It changes, you change.
Mm-hmm.
I always admire a guy that I've always admired, Bob Dylan.
Yep.
When he talks about some of those early, I'm not making a comparison, I'm talking about an appreciation, okay? I know, not at all. I wish. But he used to, I loved it so much that he had the courage to admit that those early songs, some of those early songs,
Mhm.
were genius, and he doesn't know where they came from.
Yeah.
And he probably couldn't do that now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whether that came out of instinct, naivete, whatever,
Yeah.
who knows? But sometimes occasions I have seen little pieces of
Mhm.
old films. I think, huh, that's interesting. And it's interesting because you didn't know any better.
It feels like another self.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't know any better. So I thought, he's not trying to do something. He's just trying to survive. He's just trying to, he's just doing it
Mhm.
because he doesn't know any better.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but it's pretty scary.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what, were there actors that when you started acting, were there actors that you had as frames of reference, people that you...
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say this, that I liked, and I don't know whether this was an affectation or protection, but I wouldn't like my other actor friends, which I didn't have many of, because I came from a different tradition. I came from avant-garde theater tradition,
downtown,
where they weren't actors, they weren't theater people,
Yes.
they were painters, dancers, poets, whatever.
Right.
I remember the actors I liked when I was younger were always kind of like B-movie actors.
Yeah.
Because they had a kind of simplicity and gravitas. I've never liked show-off actors.
Yeah.
So guys like Warren Oates,
Yeah.
I could watch them because I saw a person up there.
Yeah.
It wasn't that they weren't transformative necessarily,
Mhm.
but I saw people up on the screen.
Yeah.
And they were people that I didn't necessarily know, but, there was a truth there.
Yeah.
So I was always attracted to that. I guess and I've always been attracted to non-acting.
Like in Bresson's films, or
Pardon?
in Robert Bresson's films.
Yes.
Or, yeah.
And I love it also when you see a film that's out of your culture,
Mhm.
and you don't know whether the people are actors or not,
Yeah.
because you may not be familiar with them. You go deep,
Mhm.
because you don't get thrown out by anything. You don't get thrown out by egotism or narcissism.
Yeah.
Now, that's pretty funny if you've made, a lot of movies. Probably people, when they see you, they're going to have an association.
Yeah.
How do you shake that? Well, I can't think about that too much because it's too depressing. But I like the fantasy that you can be transformed and you can come from a different place. And I'm always interested in kind of losing myself in having the experience of someone else's way of thinking and way of being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That leads to a question about working with non-actors in movies where actors and non-actors are kind of mixing it up, and I think that's
Which Florida example was a great example.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a very, very special skill on the part of the actors who are working with them, and also on the part of the directors to be able to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sean Baker did a beautiful job in
Yeah.
that movie.
Yeah.
Well, he's in his other movies as well, but
Yes.
particularly that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, but what do you think? What kind of attention do you have to bring to non-actors to give them the freedom? To be
Receptivity.
themselves? Yeah, right.
Not to be rigid. Not do it their way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Be a non-actor yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And somewhere I kind of aspire to that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds maybe ridiculous, but it's true.
Mm-hmm. Even when you're in some kind of like big budget machinery. I mean, you haven't been making too many of those
That's
films.
a little different sometimes
Yeah.
because in a couple of,
like Spider-Man, for instance.
Well, Spider-Man was more fluid and more experimental than you think.
Okay.
Because there was no model.
Yeah.
And Sam Raimi was making a comic book. I remember friends saying, "You're going to make a movie out of a comic book?
Yeah.
Hey, you whore, you know?"
Uh-huh.
It sounded like a really bad, cheesy
Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
But Sam Raimi was a believer.
Mm-hmm.
And he approached this. Spider-Man, I thought, was very cool because it mixed, comedy and drama so well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fun, but it had some stuff. I like that movie.
Yeah.
That didn't feel. And he's a good enough director. Sometimes you get in your situations where your job is clear and you've got to do that
Right.
job.
Right.
And I try not to get in those situations, but sometimes I have.
Mm-hmm.
And they can be satisfying, but in the doing. But before the doing, you think, This is work. I got to do that thing,
Right.
And that's to be avoided at all costs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I try to avoid that,
Mm-hmm.
not out of pride, just out of I feel like I function better when I'm a little surprised.
Mm-hmm. And that's really only possible when you're working with somebody like Abel Ferrara. Or,
Where you're searching
Yeah.
for something, or
Yeah.
the degree of difficulty is so great that you just kind of try to be courageous just because you don't know any better, because you don't, it's a leap of faith.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's why it's funny when people sometimes say, "What role would you love to play?"
Right.
It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
no role.
Right.
It's like, I don't have an idea of things that I want to show.
Yeah.
I don't even have idea of
Right.
things that I want to express.
Right.
But I want to be in situations where I want to submit or be in the mix, have something happen,
Yeah.
be there in a receptive, clear, involved way,
Right.
and then it's recorded and it's shared.
Yeah.
And that's so in that way I feel, yeah.
As opposed to like, oh, I want to play Homer or Jonas Salk or something like that, But I mean, for instance, and when you're
You
playing
said Homer, I thought Simpson.
Homer Simpson, yeah, I know.
You know the level of my
Yes.
education. It's not true.
Yeah. But
I went to public school.
but when you're playing Van Gogh, you're not playing a historical personage. You're playing.
You're not even
Vincent.
playing Van Gogh.
Yeah. Yeah.
You aren't.
Yeah.
You're learning to paint.
Mm.
You're being in the places this historical figure called Van Gogh was.
Yeah.
You're taking his words.
Yeah.
You're putting them in your head. You're
Yeah.
saying them. You don't want to make something that disrespects. It's because you're taking those elements. You've got to be respectful of those elements.
Right.
Just naturally, in the sense of you want to find some sort of clarity or truth.
Mm-hmm.
But no, you have to forget about Van Gogh.
Yeah.
But you're totally intent on Van Gogh because you're gathering the stuff of his life as much as you can. And you're sitting with it and you're making an experience out of it.
Yeah. Open it up to the audience for some questions. Here's a question right here, and wait for there should be a microphone, and it's coming. No, he has his own microphone. Yeah. See, that was a great spontaneous moment right there. There we go.
Just trying to entertain.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. So I was just looking over your film work and everything on Wikipedia. So I'm wondering about your experience.
Wikipedia?
Yeah.
Lying bastards.
Well, the question here is known about it. So it says your first role was in '79 for Michael Cimino's Heaven's Gate. Is that correct?
Yes.
So the reason that The reason that jumps out at me is as a film student and somebody who loves to look back at the history of Hollywood, especially in the 70s when I grew up, we all know that that was like held up as an example of a massive budget and a tanked at the box office.
Yeah.
And it was actually used as like a sample of everything that went wrong, right? And so I'm wondering your experience. What did you learn from it? You were very young, but you were there. And how was Cimino as a director? And just it's an interesting experience.
I was fired from that movie.
They didn't tell you that on
I was.
Wikipedia.
Were you in it though? I don't know if I've seen it.
Yeah, I'm in it, but very little.
How'd you get
know,
fired?
I was there for 3 months. It shot for 8 months. When I arrived, I was working at the theater, and they made a deal. They said, you're going to go shoot for 2 months, and then you're going to go home for a month,
Yeah.
and then you're going to come back for 2 weeks or whatever. The whole film was supposed to be 3 months. Its budget was, I don't know what.
Huge.
But
Yeah.
no.
No,
It
but
started
it-
out like $10 million.
doubled
or
or
something.
tripled, right?
And then it became 40.
That's what I meant.
In those days, which was a lot of money.
Yeah.
We were in a lighting setup all day, in full costume, full makeup, standing there, which is fair.
Yeah.
But it was a little tedious, and I'm conscientious. I was shooting a lot. Cimino seemed to like me. We were in a lighting setup. Someone told me a joke, and I laughed. And he heard the laugh, and he turned around, saw me, and I think by that time he was under a lot of pressure, and he felt a little paranoid. And
Oh, boy.
he said, Willem, step out. And everybody was like, and I stepped out. I said, what's up? And he said, Don, just go to your hotel. So I went to the hotel, and about 2 hours later,
Here's your plane ticket.
a fourth AD hands me a plane ticket. I kid you not. No one said anything to me.
Yeah.
And I said, what's going on? They said, you're wrapped. I said, wow. And he said, no, great, okay, have a good trip. And that was it. It was pretty. You know, the first day we became a week behind.
The
Do
first
the math.
day.
First day we became about a week behind because he was inventing things. And it was very exciting. The movie was very exciting. And he probably would have made an even better movie, but the pressure got, it
Yeah.
was a runaway budget. It was mismanaged. But he was a very good filmmaker, I'd say. But
8 months
Huh?
is a long. 8 months is a long.
it is.
Long time.
But he was doing very interesting things.
Sure.
And where he got hung up is the story was sliding around. And
Yeah.
I'm not a guy that thinks cinema's all about narrative.
Right.
Because I'm not. Sometimes I'm a great believer in the words, stories hide the truth.
Right.
But the story didn't hold together. And it was a Western. People wanted a Western.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just one thing.
Uh,
You come off The Deer Hunter, which De Niro has said to this day is the finest thing he's ever done. He's the most proud of The Deer Hunter than any other film De Niro's done.
I didn't know he said
De
that.
Niro said he's prouder of The Deer Hunter than any other film he's ever done.
His role.
I want
I
the
think
tapes.
I'd like to- yeah,
I want
I
the
do too.
tapes. Be careful.
That's.
If Wikipedia's your go-to
Yeah, I know. I was
source,
gonna say that sounds like a
ay.
Wikipedia entry to me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we all
I
have
think
our
he said
weak,
the same
we
thing
all
about
have
Meet
our
the
weak
Parents,
moments.
right?
I
The
don't believe
Fockers
that.
is the best film I've ever. Yeah. 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 One suck.
Anyway, you brought up a painful subject.
You got your revenge, it tanked.
What's that?
You got your revenge, it tanked at the box office.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah,
So it's-
but I'm not happy at anyone's misery.
What kind of research did you have to do about historical facts, about Van Gogh, about different moments in his life that you had to prepare? What kind of preparation did you have to do?
The painting was a huge preparation. Also, very important while Julian and Jean-Claude Carrière were writing the script, Julian said, read that NYFF White Smith book, The Life,
Yes.
Van Gogh, which
Yeah.
was a really substantial biography, quite celebrated. I liked reading it a lot.
And you read the letters and the...
I read the letters. Julian also said, when you go through that book, pick out anything that interests you.
Mm-hmm.
Any events, anything he says. And I did.
Yeah.
And I wrote, made notes. I typed up, they were probably 10 pages. And I gave them to Jean-Claude and Julian. And some of that got incorporated into the script, which was nice because that kind of started bringing me into that process.
Yeah.
The letters, biographical stuff. Now, keep in mind that we're dealing with a very specific period, his most prolific period. He was working all the time. So that's what I did. I painted, and, was in nature a lot. Basically that.
Yeah, in the back. Oh. Sure.
Which character emotionally changed you the most in your career?
That's two questions. Me and my career, they're like this.
Thank you.
That's hard. It's hard. I don't know.
Was it the character that changed? If there are changes that occur, is it the experience?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, sometimes it's the same thing when someone says, what movie did you enjoy the most? I mean, did I enjoy it because it was fun to make, or did I enjoy it because it was successful?
Yeah.
It's a little bit like that question.
Yeah.
Certain movies stick out. I think the movies that affect me most are the ones where I had to, where I had a substantial role. I was shooting every day. And for example, Van Gogh and Jesus,
Pasolini by Abel Ferrara, which I hope.
These are movies where I'm learning a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning about another person's life, and I'm also gathering a lot of material of these very well documented lives. So I'm like a student. I'm learning a lot. That doesn't go away.
Yeah.
So. Also, T.S. Eliot, many years ago, he's had such a well-documented life. He was prolific.
Yeah.
He wrote letters. He wrote beautiful criticism.
Yeah.
He wrote beautiful poetry. He made plays. There were lots of biographies on him. I read all this stuff, and then we shot in London, actually at a lot of the actual addresses that he lived, because he hopped around quite a bit. And that stays with me forever. And then
That's Tom and Viv.
Tom and Viv,
Right.
a small English film, but got good response actually. Those are the ones that stick, and then there are the ones that are just pleasurable and fun, like Bobby Peru in David Lynch.
And Wild at Heart.
Wild at Heart.
Yeah.
Those are memorable because they're fun, and there's other ones that are fun because they're great adventures, like a movie called Victory by Mark Peplow, very little seen film, but we shot in beautiful places, and it was a period film, and I would go to set on this, boat from the 19th century, and I'd put on Speedos, go down the side, and swim to the set, and they'd meet me there with the rowboats with my costume, and we'd shoot. It was fun. So I didn't give you a good answer.
Were there any that you thought were going to turn out? I mean, I'm sure that there were, but I guess I'm asking about that experience of thinking that something's going to turn out well, and in the end,
yeah.
Can you
I don't
feel
think
it when you're making it?
Sometimes I'm disappointed. Sometimes there's the old story where it's usually when a director is not very flexible,
Right.
and they make a show they make a game of flexibility while you're shooting it. So
But they're
it's
not
like,
in actuality flexible.
let's do another one, but this one, do it really hard. And I'm like, I don't see it that way. Okay, I'll give you one like that.
Yeah.
And then you see it cut together, and they take all the takes where you're like that.
Yeah.
It's like, you jerk, You rope-a-doped me, I gave you a wide range of things, and you kept on going to that particular thing. Because the film, the film is made in post-production. it's an editor's medium, it's a director's medium. Actors are essential. I'm not being falsely modest. Actors are essential because we've got to bring the quality of being there, and if they have nothing to work with, they can do all kinds of fancy stuffs, but it's not going to have any soul. So I take my job seriously, but I also recognize that at a certain point you got to let go. You got to give them stuff that is whole enough, integrated enough, truthful enough, that no matter how they cut it, they can't take that away from you.
Right.
But sometimes, in an interest of being flexible and being a collaborator, you give someone something that they're asking for that is against your impulses.
Right.
It doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
This is why it's important to trust people that you work with.
Mm-hmm.
There have been movies where I've done that,
Mm-hmm.
and we haven't shared, don't have the same idea.
Yeah.
And then I feel kind of betrayed because I betrayed myself because I tried to be generous, but, no good deeds go unpunished. That's the beautiful thing about making movies. It's really revealing about people's characters, how generous they are,
Yeah.
and what they do and don't do, and why they do it and don't. I love this sociological thing of being in this group of people that come together,
Yeah.
particularly when you're on location and everyone leaves their lives and they make a new life.
Yeah.
You really see
Yeah.
the stuff people are made of.
Yeah. No, it's creating a new organism. I mean, it's like Francois Truffaut said that, making a film is like going into a fugue state. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, good.
For everybody.
Yep.
Right. There was a question there. Yeah.
So, out of all the roles, all diverse roles you did, out of what role did you feel like you became the character, where you looked in the mirror and you method acting and you prepped?
No method acting.
Method acting is not
No
part of
method
your-
acting.
yeah.
I don't know. All and none. No, I'm sorry. I really don't have a good answer because I don't think about that. As I say, I'm trying to find something clear, something truthful, something engaged. And, I don't know. I don't know. Whether I became the character or not, that's like make-a-believe. I think that's mythology. What's important is what people experience from the movie. And sometimes people can be totally, I don't know, it can function very well, but there can be no transformation or no change. There are great performances in cinema.
Yeah.
Great actors who use themselves iconographically. There's nothing transformational about
Right.
them, but they bring something that really makes you see in a different way, or helps facilitate a story, or make something beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of actors, and I guess I'm most interested in being vital for whatever the film needs me to do. And each time it's different. So this notion that you have to become the character, I'm kind of repelled by it. I think you have to inhabit the character. You've got to invent the character. You have to make something. And the character is something that is created out of you.
Yeah.
It's not anyone else doing it. So it is me. So I have become the character. I don't know. I feel funny about that, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, it's one model of acting, and it's a model of acting
and
that's
it's a little oppressive
discussed,
because
zeroed in on in the press a lot.
yeah,
Right? Yeah.
yeah. So forgive me.
It's
Hi, I've been waiting to ask this and trying to figure out how I wanted to ask it, so it'll just come out.
oh boy.
Right?
Here we go.
Here we go.
No pressure, by the way.
No pressure. I'm not standing. Maybe I'll stand up.
That's
okay.
good.
All right,
That's
here we
good.
go. First step. So I saw the Florida Project, and I'm a retired social worker, and I was knocked out by what you did as the manager. And I think that was a movie that should have gotten much more attention, and your role in it, and all the other people, amazing ensemble acting. And I was wondering, and comparing that to seeing Van Gogh last night, and having been to all of the places, because I went on some kind of art tour in 1990 about where Van Gogh lived, so it brought back a lot of things, and how aggressive the museum is about insisting that he committed suicide, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
So can you help me understand when you say you don't become the character, but I was so impressed by the reality of what you did with Van Gogh and also the manager of the hotel, because that comes out of my work and life experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. For the Florida Project, the key to that was really being a manager. You know, not being an actor, being a manager. Not in a method way, just doing the stuff that a manager does. And naturally, because we were shooting in a real motel, I got to know those people. And this beautiful thing happens where them became us. I became one of them. It wasn't acting. I was doing the job. It was like I was really a manager. And that's not a method thing. It happens by accident, by committing to the actions, the doing.
You familiarize yourself with
Yeah,
the rhythm.
take it on.
Yeah.
That's, you know, and I guess, listen, I probably didn't describe it very well, but this whole idea of becoming the character doesn't exist. Van Gogh doesn't exist. We don't know who Van Gogh was. He's not here. He's left us some art, and we can interpret it all kinds of ways. But this is all invention. We're inventing all this stuff. And I guess there's no sense of becoming the character.
Yeah.
It's about creating something that's true and resonant and means, you know, has some life to it, that people see it and it does something to them. So I'm just saying, it's, you know, when you get into this thing about becoming the character, or when we talk about acting, we talk about it like it's a sport sometimes, you know. I even heard some critics they were talking about Oscar stuff, you know, and they were talking about different performances, and they were talking about degree of difficulty.
Oh, yeah. That should be a new category, I think, right?
Well, he had the accent, he handled that, he did this, he looks like him, he doesn't look that, you know, this kind of thing. It's not a competitive sport.
Yeah.
It has to be judged
Damn
in the
right.
hearts of all of us, you know, every spectator. Now, it's difficult because there's a glut of stuff to watch, and, you know, people want to point you in the right direction, so they want to make the signs easy. So we invent this kind of language to talk about these things so we can have you know, prizes and things and point people towards what we want them to see.
Yeah. You know, that's all the time we have, and I just, you know, there's a lot more to say, but Willem,
I
thanks a
talk
million.
too much, maybe.
No, no.
It went
What, are you
fast.
kidding?